I just want to say it's an incredible thrill to see how many of you are with us today. Many of you whom we work with and know, and so many that we have not yet met. And we are just absolutely thrilled. For those of you whom I have not met yet, I am Sister Judith Royer, CSJ, Director of the congregation's Center for Reconciliation and Justice on the LMU campus. And on behalf of my colleagues at the center and the CSJ Congregation of Religious Women and the people who worked with this project, I want to welcome all and each of you to today's celebration of the spirit, the charism, the soul, the heart and soul of the Sisters of St. Joseph of Orange. In December of 2020, Pope Francis declared a year of Joseph, a year of St. Joseph. In May of 21, he declared a somewhat overlapping year in honor of St. Ignatius. So here at the university, we thought that was kind of neat to be able to celebrate those together. And in honor of what the CSJ community owes to the spiritual traditions of both of these that we've inherited from both of these men of God, the center is presenting about a 1 hour long theater piece entitled Spirit Moves, that weaves together the stories of 10 Sisters of St. Joseph. Let me just say one thing about the webinar. Sometimes when we are on webinar as we are now, when we do a recording and we're switching one technology into another, you may get a delay, a sound delay. The lips may not be quite the same as in the original. We can't do anything about that, and we thank you for your patience in advance if it happens to you. I am now thrilled to introduce my production colleague for this project, playwright Doris Baisley, to talk about the piece and the process by which we arrived at the performance you're about to see. So, Doris Baisley.
Thanks, Judith. I'm Dory Baisley, and I am a playwright who's lucky enough to have been able to co-teach with Judith in the theater department at LMU for 10 years. But our real work began 13 years ago with this project with the Sisters of St. Joseph of Orange. Judith led a group of us, playwrights, actors, and actor playwrights, down to the Mother House in Orange to meet with the sisters, to hear the stories from a selected group in one-on-one meetings, and write their stories down, shape them into dramatic monologues, and then perform them for the community and a general audience. What inspired us to keep this project going over the years, and I think all of our team, some of whom are in the project today, what kept us coming back was the power of this kind of storytelling that we discovered, where the story begins with the teller, with the words of the original storyteller, then it moves through the writer to the actor, and then it comes out into a wider audience where it returns to the storyteller, but in a new context with sometimes new meaning and new power. And this circle of communication really isn't closed until we present it to a live audience. And even though we can't see you and we're not in the same room together, your presence here today is what completes the circle. So it's really important for us, even though this is a recording, it's really important for us to show it to you today. Judith and I really want to thank all the sisters over the years, a few of them deceased, who were such beautiful contributors to our project, but all the sisters who have given us their words, their stories, their experiences to play with. Today, out of that whole group, we've chosen 10 stories to tell, to make into one story, the story of a community. We would like you all to stay afterwards because we're going to invite the actors, the writers, and the sisters to come on screen and join in a conversation. And it's actually also going to be kind of a reunion and for sure a celebration for all of us who have love this project. It's called Spirit Moves, and here it is.
This is sacred ground for me. Where I live now is the same building where I took care of our founder, Mother Bernard. It's the convent that was built in 1929 with the original St. Joseph Hospital, room number 6. That was Mother Bernard's room. At that point, she was well into her 80s. She walked with a cane and she shuffled as she walked in her little slippers. I'd hear that sound and I'd know where she was. The first thing she would do, well, she was a very prayerful lady. She would go up into the choir loft to pray. There were many, many hospital sisters there at that time, and we all wore white. And when we had choir practice, Mother Bernard would be up there in the choir loft, listening to us. Hail, Holy Queen, enthroned above, O Maria. We had a lovely sister with a beautiful voice, Sister Mary Luke. All of a sudden, we'd hear Mother Bernard's cane thump on the floor. Sister Mary Luke, you're drowning their voices. You have a beautiful voice, but you're drowning their voices. Their beautiful angel voices. We'd all chuckle. But she was always in control. She didn't miss a thing. No matter how old or how ill she became, she was still involved in everything, still wanting to be a part of community. All of us in community. No one voice above the other. And I feel that is important for us as an aging community, to remember from our earliest days, we still have that wisdom.
I was 10 years old.
I was 14, living on 5 acres of land in Ontario, Oregon, with my mother, father, and 12 siblings.
I'm reading The Story of a Soul by Saint Therese of Lisieux, the Little Flower. She was a Carmelite.
One day, our priest, Father Macias, invites us to help him out with the youth at his parish. He says to me, my brother and sister, hey, you guys have to help the other Mexican kids who have no way of having a social life. So let's get together and make a club, and you'll do whatever you can to help them. We quickly decide we're going to have dances. Every Tuesday night, we'll have a dance in the church hall, and we'll get our folks to help us, and it will be a blast. But how will we let the Mexican people know this dance is coming up? We have an idea. We buy an amplifier for our car so we can put a record on it. Then we drive out to where the campesinos are weeding the sugar beets. We stop the car in the middle of a field. The needle is put on the record, and Richie Valens' guitar, followed by his voice, soars out of the amplifier. Can you hear the song? I ask. They smile and dance back to us with their whole body like this to let us know. And then we tell them about the dances, and they come, and it's great. The Guadalupe Club continues, and I am really enjoying my social life at the church. But when I turn 16, Father Macias tells my mother, I think your daughter has a vocation.
Reading about living a secluded life in a monastic order, spending many hours a day in prayer, I feel a certain fire inside me.
I think, my God, what is this all about?
At 15, I managed to get an address for a Carmelite monastery in Philadelphia.
I kneel down at the side of my bed and I say, please, God, please don't give me a vocation.
Of course, they write back and say, I'm too young to join.
I was in high school. A friend left the school I was attending to study at St. Joseph Preparatory School in Orange. A couple of us came down to visit her, and we stopped by the Mother House Chapel. And I knelt there, just as kind of a visit. But then
Something changed. My prayer life began to change.
my whole being was filled with the presence of God.
I'm sorry that I wanted the life for me instead of thinking of you, Lord. Forgive me.
I knew that what I desired most would be found here.
God, if you want to give me a vocation, help me be generous and go with it.
I exchanged my favorite summer dress for an ill-fitting black blouse and skirt and put on black stockings, old lady shoes, and a white veil.
The summer before senior year in high school, I come to Orange, California, where I become a sister of St. Joseph.
At 17, in my senior year of high school, I entered the Sisters of St. Joseph. They were about doing service and working out in the world, not living a secluded life. And this felt right.
From 10th grade, I knew I wanted to enter. I didn't want to be married. I didn't want to be single. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I saw poor people going in and out of my life. I always knew I wanted to do something for somebody else. Now that I think about it, my grandmother did that. She was from Mexico. She had a great devotion to the Sacred Heart, but she never went to Mass. Anyway, when I was a little girl, she founded a group at the parish called Santa Rita. Now, these women would come to our house. They'd put a quarter in the till, and she'd buy sacks of beans and rice to give to the needy in the parish. When they came, I'd get under the table and look at all their legs and their shoes. All of them had on old lady shoes, which, of course, I wore 10 years later in the convent.
When we were kids, we had no religion. We were pagan babies. On Sunday mornings, I'd watch this Italian girl who was all dressed up. I'd be there in my overalls with my muddy feet, and I said, "Why are you all dressed up?" She said, "For church." I said, "What's church?" And she said, "It's where you pray to God." I said, "God? What is God?" I didn't know. Well, I'm thinking, I'd like to know who this God is. I gotta find out. There were only 2 Chinese families in Elko, Nevada. The Yees, that was us, and the Wings, who were Catholic. I said, "Song Wing, who is God?" "Oh," she said, "he is important. He created you. You should know about him. You can pray to him." So I said, "Okay, teach me how." And that's when I learned the Our Father. I went home and found a wooden crate, turned it upside down, and put a pretty piece of material on it. And that was my prayer stool, so I could pray. After we moved to San Francisco, we went to St. Mary's Chinese School. We were the first generation in our family to be Catholic.
To be honest, I never really thought about it on my own, but the sisters at my school start to come up to me and say, Joanne, you should think about it because you'd be really good at it. One day, close to the end of my senior year, I'm at the Mother House in Mother Felix's office, and on her desk are a lot of papers. She asks me, "You're not 18 yet, are you?" And I say, "No." "Well, then," she says, "your parents need to sign this when you enter the convent because you're not of age. But you can just sign the paper here now." And I think to myself, what in the heck is going on here? I calmly say, "I'm going to take them home, Mother Felix. We can talk about this later because I'm not decided." And then I go home with the papers, but I don't say anything to my parents. However, I keep thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it.
I never had an inkling about entering until I saw the sisters at the Chinese mission. They were so happy. It seems like they enjoyed everything they did, even when they were carrying out the trash. Imagine seeing nuns carrying garbage cans and laughing. They had such a presence of joyfulness. When they made me May Queen, I wondered, why did they pick me? Sister gave me a holy card of the Blessed Mother and said, always remain close to her. So, as time went on, this idea trickled through to me, and I just let it be.
One day, my spiritual director asks me, "Well, what did you decide?" "I haven't decided." She says, "That's because you were chosen. As it says in St. John, you have not chosen me, I have chosen you. You are an example of that." So the truth is, I was more concerned about not having kids. That was a way worse thing to me than not having a romantic relationship. Early on in high school, I had planned to have 12 kids. But this calling, this being chosen, if it's in you, you can't get away from it. Inside me, something said, I have to do this.
After high school, being the oldest girl, I was taking care of kids with my mom, shopping, running here and there. I didn't go out on a lot of dates. I started going to junior college, but grandmother moved in and I took care of her, so that put things on hold. Then my brother started talking to me about religion. And I realized that I really didn't know Catholicism. So I decided to go to church after work. And it all started making sense.
Graduation night, I'm heading out to a party, say to my parents, "By the way, I did decide to enter the convent. I'll be leaving in August." And I get in my car and whoosh, away. It didn't go well. It did not go well at all. My mother cried and cried and cried and cried.
My mom sent an uncle to discourage me, a very kind man. All he said to me was, "You want to be a sister?" I said, "Yes." He went back to my mother and said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do." Mahan at the Chinese mission was a busybody. Oh, she scolded Mom. She said, "Don't let her go. You shouldn't let her go." Finally, I said, "Mom, I'm going to enter." She left the room and went into the kitchen to wash her hair. But I knew she was crying. June 25th, 1949, when I turned 21, I left. Mom stayed in bed and cried and cried. It was raining outside and inside. It was so hard. I went in and said, "Goodbye, Mom." And by the grace of God, I did it.
I skipped something. It was a big influence in my life. When I was 12, I got molested by this guy who lived down the street who happened to be a Marine. A 12-year-old little girl is not going to tell her Marine Corps dad about it. So I just got stuck there for such a long time. Didn't say a word. And really didn't know how much that was impacting my life. I started going to church, to mass after work. It was very peaceful. And I kept talking to my brother about religion. And now this is weird. I was sitting in church one day and I'm hearing this voice. I'm not used to hearing voices, and I haven't since. And I'm thinking, I'm supposed to go talk to that woman over there. Never seen her before. So I go, excuse me, I think you're a sister? She goes, yes. Can I come talk with you? Yes, of course. So she invited me to go to the Jubilee Liturgy. And people were very welcoming, friendly. I'd heard about these sisters because she had given me some information, and I thought, wow, they seem to have a big world. Big world.
The wind blows where it wills, and you can hear the sound it makes.
But you do not know where it comes from or where it goes.
So it is with everyone who is born of the Spirit.
Our first task in approaching another people, another culture, another religion is to take off our shoes. For the place we are approaching is holy. Else, we find ourselves treading on another's dream. And more serious still, we may forget that God was there before our arrival. That poem was written by Raymond Hammer, a theologian and poet, and it was my motto when approaching my ministry in Papua New Guinea. But of course, before taking off our shoes, I had to find my way there.
It never occurred to me until around the 6th grade that there were really poor people who were starving. I didn't realize how poor people could be. I said, what can I do about that? What can I do? And this little girl who wanted to do something, who didn't know there were poor people, ended up being in Papua New Guinea for 20 years.
Something was burning inside me to go. I prayed about it every day for a year. And at the end of a year, I wrote a letter to the General Superior and received a yes right away. As I left, all our sisters stood out on the steps, singing to wish me a safe journey.
Stella matutina, Ave Maria, lascivi et vita nostra Domina, Maria Mater Dei, nos annes adiuva.
In 1986, I got a call from the Share Foundation saying that they are trying to get a group of people together who would accompany some refugees from El Salvador to go back to Chalatenango, their home village. At the time, this is what I know about the war in El Salvador. It continues because it is financed by the US, and I know it gives the military a lot of strength there. But I don't know anything about El Salvador, the people, the culture. I tell the person on the other line, look, I really don't know anything about El Salvador other than the war.
I learned the most used language, Melanesian Pidgin, in Gagan, in the heart of the bush. I taught 5th grade. And later on Nisan Island, along with Sister Louise Ann, I went to the villages and we started asking the people, how can the church serve you best? And everyone in the village came out. They'd come out for a couple of hours and they would ask questions in Pidgin, like, God emi good pala, time God e wakaman emi good pala, or someone naman and make them no good.
God is good. God made man good. So how could man sin?
Heaven is that way.
Where is heaven?
Or you tingol samo tumbuna bilang mi stop long heaven and no God.
What do you think, sister? Are my ancestors in heaven or not?
It struck me then that no matter where you come from, so many of the questions are the same.
We say our mission is to bring God to others. But of course, what happens in Papua New Guinea is that they bring God to us.
I go to El Salvador. I accompany about 300 refugees from the basement of the cathedral to their home village. When we get to the village, there is no village to speak of, but the people are excited to be home. We build fires to cook the corn and beans to feed the people, and I stay a little longer than the scheduled 2 weeks. But soon it comes time for me and another sister to leave. And as we're getting ready to leave, this one woman comes out of the crowd and says, "Why are you going? We'll feel better if we have foreigners with us." I come back to the States to tell the story. I ask the sisters, should I go back to El Salvador? The superior doesn't know if I should. The counselors don't know, and I don't know either. Tell me if I should go back. And nobody says no. I pray on this. What will I do there? What can I do? A war is going on. My feeling is this: the Salvadoran people have to put up with a war that should have ended a long time ago. But it continues because my government supports it. US tax money continues to support the war. So the least I can do is go and receive the same punishment the Salvadoran people have to put up with. How can I live with myself and say, no, I'll stay here in the States? Of course, I love the people I work with and lived with in California. The parish has given me a car, food, shelter, support. But I think to myself, is that what life is about? Is it? I decide to go back to El Salvador.
It was during this time that the revolution was brewing, and the Bougainville Mining Company had a mine which had devastated all the area around it. And when the mining company first came, the people welcomed it. They thought they would be getting better schools and roads and hospitals, but Papua New Guinea government were really the only ones who financially benefited from it. And all the locals received was land that would never be alive again. In fact, the Bougainville Mining Company wanted to open 7 more mines, and this would mean complete devastation for the land of Bougainville, so the people were angry. And on Holy Thursday of 1989, Papua New Guinea Army came in to quell the uprising. They would spray whole villages with machine gun fire, killing indiscriminately women, children. They hated the sounds of the helicopters. And the soldiers with big guns, you could see them carrying them, and you really never knew when they would open fire. So Sisters Monique and Louise Ann and I would stand at the mission door holding a white sheet stretched between us, hoping that the surrender flag would deter them from shooting at us. Many of the priests and sisters left, but Sister Monique and I and Louise Ann, we stayed.
Sunday, February 11th, 1990. This is the story the newspapers don't cover. 2 other North American sisters and I are in the chapel in the small community of Corral de Pierra. This area has much unrest. In the early morning, there is a shooting, and we hear helicopters and fighter planes overhead. Then the bombs begin to drop for the next 2 hours. The walls of the chapel shake and the grounds tremble. We huddle against the adobe walls and wait. When the bombing stops, we step outside. There is a young woman, panicked, who explains to us that a bomb was dropped on one of the houses. Many are dead and wounded. We set out immediately and find the bomb had been dropped on the molino, the mill, which housed the community corn grinder. Many people huddled inside because the molino is made of brick. What I see inside is a nightmare. Adults and children obliterated. I weep in disbelief. The sisters and I are told the civilians waved white flags at the fighter planes, but the soldiers dropped the bombs anyway. We focus on the wounded. We transport them to a local hospital. Then we call church representatives in San Salvador and the United States to let them know the military killed civilians. They knew they were killing civilians. It needs to stop now.
So many people were displaced. 20,000 people became homeless because of this 17-month crisis. There's a large percentage of their population. After the army lifted the blockade on Buca Island, I saw such devastation. There were schools, none of them were open, none of them were running, displaced people everywhere. I was so relieved whenever I saw people that were alive that had not been killed. And one man that I saw, John Thingley, very good man, I thanked him and said hello and was glad he'd not died. But that evening, they burned his village and he did die. The violence was far from over.
The day before he was assassinated by the death squad in San Salvador, Monsignor Romero said, "No one has to obey an immoral law. The church cannot remain silent before such an abomination. In the name of God, in the name of this suffering people, whose cry rises to heaven more loudly each day, I implore you, I beg you, I order you, stop the repression."
New Year's Day, 1991, the bishop sent word that Monique was safe in Australia, and we knew it was our time to leave Papua New Guinea.
One of the seminarians calls me on the phone. He says, "Don't forget that the phone is tapped. Don't speak openly. Don't make phone calls. You could be seen as a guerrilla sympathizer. You could be killed."
Oh God, old man, he say they give him backside long you. All they lack down in me, you must help in me.
Grant me justice, O God. Defend me from a faithless people, from the deceitful and unjust. Rescue me.
The Salvadoran military lies about this bombing. The government lies about the bombing. And the United States remains untouched by this suffering.
Ole lak down in me.
From the deceitful and unjust.
You must help me.
Rescue me.
I continue to make the calls.
I've been visiting Miguel and Javier since January of '08. They were picked up December of '07. Miguel was 14. Javier was 15. Neither of them had ever been in a gang, but Miguel got a ticket once for jaywalking. I jaywalk, but I never got a ticket. Miguel and Javier were on my visiting list for juvenile hall. Incarcerated minors, they call them. They really are children. They're just children. Catholic VIP, they call me. Not very important person, but volunteer in probation. A volunteer who visits kids one-to-one at their request because they didn't have any people to go and visit them. Miguel hurt somebody who was in a gang. He didn't die. The injury wasn't life-threatening, but he was taken to the hospital. Miguel was scared, angry. He'd been abused as a child, molested by his mother's boyfriend. They went into foster care after the abuse, but they had never been in a gang. The prosecutor wanted to try them as adults belonging to a gang. Miguel and Javier were incarcerated December 15th, 2007, and it didn't go to trial until December 2010. They were incarcerated in a high security unit, and at some point they were separated. Within a year of their incarceration, their mother was deported. No one was showing up to visit these kids, so I was doing it. One time I was visiting Javier and he said, "Sister Rosemary, I keep thinking that maybe you won't come back to see me if I'm not baptized. You know, I do want to be baptized, but I'm not worthy." Javier, none of us are. None of us are. But anyway, the bishop has drawn the curtain. No baptisms in his diocese for persons who are incarcerated. I wrote the bishop a letter. I have a packet of correspondence between us. In the end, it came down to, I'm the bishop and I'm right. I pray for him. Javier and Miguel were put in county jail when they turned 18. Javier called me on his 19th birthday. I'm hoping I don't have to go to state prison on my birthday, sister. But they did go, both of them. They were taken away that night. They're at Wasco Prison, out in the desert. They are not together. They put them in different sectors. Javier and Miguel were sentenced on June 20th, 2010. I was there. For the first time, I heard the judge say out loud that Miguel and Javier were not the perpetrators of the crime. I had never heard that before, not in all those years. The judge said he was giving them lenience. They each got 5 years, with credit for time served. The judge said, forthwith to go to state penitentiary. The judge told Javier, because he was the oldest, he would have to register as a gang member. He's never been one. What gang does he register as? The judge says he has to make restitution. $200 for this, $90 for this, $100 for that. Where is he going to find that money? Who is going to make restitution to Javier for losing 3 years of high school? For having his mother deported while he was in juvenile hall? For losing his home and his family and everything? Who is going to make restitution to Javier?
I burned out. In 1974, a sister in another community and I opened a halfway house in San Francisco where women inmates could serve out the end of their prison sentences. All of this was new, brand new. I mean, it was not done in those days. People were very leery of letting them go. Like, you can't trust them. Well, they were difficult to work with, those women. They were tricky. Most of them were in for what we would call crimes against the economy. They were poor. They'd cash a check over $300. And in those days, it was a felony. So in they'd go for a pretty long time. And the prison system stank. It just stank. Since I had been in the convent, all my friends were women. And women make wonderful friends. But what I found in the prison was that women were not friends. I wanted to show them that they could be friends. I was program director, but I also wanted to be their friend. But no, that was hard. I started having these symptoms. I'd get emotional. I'd cry very easily. I worried a lot. I didn't sleep well. And then I just didn't want to come to work. That was the end.
There's a lot of chaos in pastoral care. You meet people that are suffering, that are scared to death. I learned a lot from sitting with people and listening to all of the pain they are carrying, the secrets, the wounds. Made me wonder about my own wounds and the cost of my silence.
In those days, we did not use the word sabbatical in our congregation. I just said, I'm very tired. I need rest. Well, they didn't know what to do with me, so they sent me to the worst place they could send me, Ontario, California. We have a convent there. These poor sisters are way out there. So I went. I read. That was good. Okay. But then I kept getting this thing from the administration. You need to go back to school. I said, look, I don't want to go back to school. I'm too tired. They say, well, you have to go back to school. And I'm, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, what am I going to do?
I went back to school to get my addiction counseling training. So I go to the first class. It was a ethics class for addiction. And I'm thinking, wow, people really know all about this. I come to find out everyone was in recovery except me. Even the priest was in recovery. I thought, okay, this should be interesting.
I was driving around one day and there was this place with these pots in the back and it said pottery classes. And I said, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. It's school. I'd go every day. Wake up in the morning, go to mass, eat breakfast with the sisters. Then I'd throw pots all day. Some days I just couldn't center. And that's how I knew what was going on with me.
I realized I'm in recovery, just not for drugs and alcohol. I'm in recovery for other things. I processed having been molested early on in community, but it's really, it comes up every once in a while working with this population. I hear just so many sexual, physical, emotional abuse stories. These folks have courage to come and really deal with it.
I went back to San Francisco. We'd lost our funding for the halfway house, so we closed it up and opened a day program for battered women. We provided counseling, job training, life skills. We'd have these groups, and these women were much more open. Their vulnerability showed. And to have another woman right there, ready to receive them and understand them, they just baked in that. They loved it.
I just admire that so much. You know, when you listen to their stories, there's a situation that happened that is so terrible, so unforgiving, so evil, so painful that they have to drink to cope with it. And I'm awestruck when they get it. You got to watch for it. That small, tiny flash when you see, I get it.
I'm interviewing a woman and she says to me, "You understand, don't you?" And I say, "What?" "You've been battered, haven't you?" I say, "No, I haven't." "Then how do you know? How do you understand this?" I said, "Because I listen."
Thing is, I don't tell them my title, sister, because a lot of them have had problems with the church. This one woman found out, and it was like, I hate the Roman Catholic Church, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, hey, listen, I don't know what happened to you, but I'm really sorry. I can only imagine. Institutions are not perfect, and the church is really screwed up. One of the hardest things to do is forgive. Forgiveness and trust wrestle with each other. It's an ongoing process in my life.
Didn't you say you were a believer?
Didn't you say you pledged to listen to a voice greater?
Didn't you ask for grace?
You have all the resources you need to ride any wave, to surface from any trough.
I took care of several older sisters who were very ill and could not communicate. They were so vulnerable. Everything was taken away from them. You had to give them total care. Touching them, washing their feet, rubbing their backs, changing their clothes. They were so receptive in whatever way they could to express their appreciation. I have always loved nursing, but it was a particular gift for me to take care of the elderly sisters in such a way that they felt loved and cared for, and I could connect them back to community. Nobody tells you how to do it, but you just go by faith. You go right in and you do the work. You're scared. You're bound to be, but you get over it. You understand. Well, they need to be taken care of. So here I am. I am 80 years old. And as long as I can do it, there's a ministry.
The peace accords were signed in January 1992, but the work is not finished in El Salvador. What does it mean to begin the rebuilding of a country? In our parish, there are many cooperatives that received land. How will the land payments be made? How will the campesinos learn to organize themselves? Who will loan money to these campesinos? There is much more work to be done. And so, do I want to come home to Orange? No. Do I want to stay here to do the work that will probably never be done? Yes. And when I think that things are hard, I think it wasn't easy for Jesus. And I think also Jesus didn't finish his work. What makes me think I'm going to finish it? No way.
Who would think after 30 years of teaching, I'd find a new career in hospital work? This is my 24th year. I visit the staff at the hospital, everyone from the administration to the employees. Sister presence is important. They need to know that we care for them and remember them. I listen to the problems they have at home and at work. It can be painful carrying all of it in confidence, but that's the ministry, you know. That's what it's all about.
I'm 70 years old. I got sick, so I don't work anymore, which is not easy, let me tell you. This is what I do. I live in an apartment by myself, and there's a Home Depot close to where I live, and there are men, Mexican men, Spanish-speaking men, hanging out dying for jobs. And we're talking about dying because if the job market is bad for us, can you imagine what it is for them? I hire them constantly. I go get them, I bring them back, and I say, why don't you dump my trash in that trash bin way down there? I used to do it, but I don't do that anymore. So they take my bags and they dump them and I pay them and we talk. And I know that it's worth something because I can speak their language. Where are you from? Are you alone? Where's your family? Has it been difficult for you? And that opens the door. Some of them are a little bashful, but then pretty soon they start talking. I get so many life stories, you can't believe it. What is it? I'm affirming them. Sometimes I go to McDonald's, I buy 5 chickens, 5 hamburgers, and I just drive by and I say, here, take it. One time I bought all this food, I went down there and there was nobody there, which made me happy. It meant they were working. So I went to another Home Depot. There's always another Home Depot somewhere. It's simple. It's very simple. Be a neighbor.
In 2000, I was invited back to Papua New Guinea to give a retreat. The people of the island were recovering from the war. Some turned to their spiritual life to alleviate some of their suffering and to begin the healing. And at one of the retreats, a former commander of the Bougainville Army came in to begin his repenting. I was humbled by his faith in the church and the spiritual resilience of the people. And once again, I was struck by the fact that God was certainly there before we had arrived and would be there long after we were gone.
Oh my goodness. You know, I look back and I think my life is not really that interesting. I mean, I've done a lot of things, but I didn't go to Papua New Guinea or anything like that. I started out as an educator for 13 years, taught math and chemistry, first at Rosary High School in Fullerton, then at St. Bernard High in Eureka. They could have left me there forever. I was so happy. I thought that the community had invested this education in me. Where is God's grace in all of this? I asked my community, could I work at a community center there in Los Angeles? St. Odelia's offered me a parish sister position. And that was especially attractive to me, to just live with the minimal, to share whatever we had. That was so much a part of what I was desiring. Then In 1981, I was elected to general counsel of our community. And in 1986, my name showed up on a short list and I was elected to another 5 years. Well, these were even more difficult for me than the previous 5. Generally, after 10 years on the council, they, let you go breathe some other air for a while. But I asked if I could go back and live with the community of Sisters of St. Joseph in Philadelphia and work at Bread for the World, which is a hunger lobby. So for 5 years, I did the administration. I became the chief executive officer. I came home a bit tired. Then I worked at Taller San Jose for some years until I realized, mom was 88, dad was 92, and maybe I should look for a ministry close to them in Santa Rosa. And that is where the whole Vigil Light low income apartment house thing kicked in. And I mean, oh my goodness. I came to Vigil Light without any experience. 14 buildings, 13 residential buildings, and the community building. I was very energy conscious. I got solar panels on the community building and replaced all the roofs, re-insulated all the buildings, put drip irrigation around all the buildings, and added 200 shrubs rather than lawns. So it was big. I was a part of the Eco Justice Committee for my community. Well, the HUD person looked at me and said, "How are you doing this? It's just you and this part-time office support person." I said, "Well, it's big, but I'm a hard worker. And when I believe in something." Well, after 4 years there, I hired an assistant manager. At that point, I said, I think it's time to live with my parents. So it was mom and dad during the day and Vigil Light at night. But by that time, I had had that cardiac, my heart, my congestive heart failure incident. But do you see how much God has been a part? I mean, this is how I interpret my heart situation. The only way God could have stopped me. I just couldn't listen long enough and hard enough to say no. No matter how important all of this is, you can't be that involved, that intensely in a ministry and still have quiet space in your life.
Si cada día, dentro de cada noche, hay un pozo donde la claridad está encerrada.
If each day falls, inside each night, there exists a well where clarity is imprisoned.
Hay que sentarse a la orilla del pozo de la sombra y pescar luz caída.
We need to sit on the rim of the well of darkness and fish for fallen light with patience.
Con paciencia.
It's 1998 and I'm 58 and I get a brain tumor. I won't bore you with the details, but here are a few. Surgery is supposed to take 6 hours. It's 14. And the surgery is so long that my doctor didn't put my part of my forehead back. He saved the bone and he put it in my body because he figured he'd get back to it later. But because of swelling issues, he couldn't. Now, don't get freaked out. It's okay. I have no bone here. I simply say that I'm permanently open-minded. So how did faith play into this part of my life? Well, I'll tell you something. During this whole terrible ordeal, I'm so out of it that I can't even say a prayer for myself. But because I'm on the leadership committee, it goes out over the Federation Network, which is all of the communities across the country. So everyone is praying for me. And I can honestly feel myself carried by the people's prayers.
I want to go deeper with my own spiritual life. Can I be more attentive to prayer and retreat? Can I stop being too busy to be in silence and be kind to that little 12-year-old girl who lives inside of me? If I can do or say anything that can open that up for healing in someone else who may be suffering in silence, that's what I want to be about.
I believe that to live in community is to practice compassion every day. I remember my founders. It was always love and generosity and giving and prayer. They prayed before they made decisions. They prayed before they acted on anything that they thought was important for this community.
You know, the older I get, the less I know what prayer is. And I'm okay with that. Because the prayers I did before, the traditional prayers, they don't feed me anymore. I often use the book by Monsignor Romero, Day by Day, where there are excerpts from his homilies.
Peace is not the product of terror or fear.
Peace is the generous, tranquil contribution of all to the good of all.
Peace is dynamism.
It is right, and it is duty.
My first year, when I was just a postulant, my parents came to visit me on a weekend. This was only November, and I'd entered in August, but I was beginning to say, do I really want this or not? So I thought that probably sometime in my visit, I would tell them, I think that I want to go home. There's not that much to pack up. I'll just give back the clothes, take the clothes I came with, and go. And that would be the end of it. So on this November visit, they arrive in the station wagon. And here's my dog, Rocky, in the back of the station wagon. To put him in the car and bring him to see me was just something else. It was really different. And I was sitting the whole visit saying, yes, it was good to see Rocky, but I was thinking, how do I tell them that I want to go home? And with Rocky there was really no room in the car. So this was just not the time to tell them that I want to go home. So I just decided, I'm going to wait another month. I'll wait. And I never ended up wanting to leave. Whatever it was, I got over it. But it was the dog's presence in the car that meant I didn't say anything. And well, this is kind of crazy, but you know how we say dog spelled backwards is God? God was kind of there.
I've been listening to this book on addiction and how the subconscious is neither past or present. And I think that's where God is. Just being present to God, with God, right now, here. Life is brief, and there is so much more I want to do with this heart.
I went to see the eye doctor the other day and I asked him, do you love life as I do? I have nothing spectacular, but I love life. I think that's what the Spirit makes us do, is just love life. But if it's just for me alone, then it's not life.
Mother Bernard said, never fear of giving more. Always give more. That's what God would like us to do. What we need to do.
To help in every need.
To demonstrate goodwill and friendship.
To promote and rejoice in each other's progress.
To call each other to holiness and comfort.
To share all that we have in common.
To keep our homes and hearts hospitable.
To care for each other in illness and to be with each other in death.
To grow together in purity of heart, simplicity, peace, and charity.
Endeavoring to love each other as God does.
Sister Roseanne Cecillon.
Sharon Fritsch.
Rebecca Rodriguez.
Joanne Eannareno.
Sister Louise Ann Micek.
Christine Ray.
Sister Jeanne Fallon.
Dorothy Anne Yee.
Sister Rosemarie Redding.
Sister Elena Jaramillo.
I think we will be being joined by some of our sisters and
Yeah.
the actors.
Yeah.
And I believe Stephanie and Bianca are getting them on now. So
That would be great.
we'll just wait and enjoy the moment. after.
Okay. Oh, that was really great to watch again. And also, we wanted to say that if people have questions about any of this, please feel free to put them in Q&A or put them in chat. But we're going to see, we should be getting the actors and the sisters on. And
as you're on, go ahead and unmute and bring your
there's Catherine.
video on. There's Catherine.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Hooray, we're back again.
Now there's Roseanne. Where
You
are
guys
some
did
of our other
great.
sisters? Yeah, there she is.
Sister Roseanne.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you so much.
Oh, Sister Roseanne. There you are. Oh, I'm so pleased.
So Roseanne, did she do a good job for you?
I have to say, let me put your video here, step aside.
Welcome, Christine.
Hi.
Jeannie, good. Okay.
Wow, you cut it well, you guys.
The partners are coming together. You were starting to say something, Roseanne.
I just want to thank Christine and Evelyn, all of you for.
This is the 90-year-old.
Pardon? Can you
Go
hear
ahead.
me?
Yeah,
Yourself.
yeah, go ahead, Roseanne.
Okay. I just want to thank you, every one of you. I'm not one of these individual sisters who like to be on Zoom or whatever, but Christine, you have been such an instrument in my life. I really mean that sincerely. You were so gentle towards me and so receptive. I don't have words to express my deepest appreciation. And Judith, you were also so kind to me.
Oh.
I'm not used to this, I'll be honest with you, but all of you did a beautiful job for each one of our sisters. And they are each of the sisters that you spoke of are great sisters. And I just admire them so much. I do so little and in my simple way, but I really admired my sisters you all were representing. They're just marvelous sisters. And I just pray for them all the time. Thank you again, Christine.
I was honored, truly, Roseanne, to be asked both by Doris and by Judith. But then when I met you, it was so much more meaningful than so many things that one does as an actor. So I really thank you all for asking me to come to the table. I appreciate it very much.
Let me give a little context for those who are listening in and joining us with questions and comments. Each of the actors had a Zoom interview with their person, despite the fact that their story had already been done with another writer or actor in a previous year. But anyone who was coming on new, in fact, all of them had between a half an hour to an hour conversation. And I was on, Dory and I were honored to be able to sit in on some of those. And they were inspiring. They were absolutely inspiring, the beautiful relationships that developed. So Roseanne, we will never, ever allow you to say that you have not done great things for us. Not allowed, not allowed. But the sign of a true sister.
Thank you.
All right.
Christine.
Did I cut you off from something, Roseanne, though?
No, thank you.
Okay. And we have Elena is with us, and Jeannie is with us, and Christine. So I don't know if you want to share with your people in any way.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeannie. Yeah.
Elena is muted, and so is Jeannie.
Unmute, Jean.
La sencillez de su corazón me llega, me mueve. The simplicity of your heart speaks to my heart. Gracias.
Thank you, Elena.
De nada.
Maybe let's see if Stephanie is able to do anything to help her unmute. Is there anything you're able to do, Stephanie?
Who are we unmuting?
Jeannie. Oh, Jeannie got unmuted. Yeah, okay. All right, Jean. No, she's still not.
I am here, but my picture isn't there.
That's okay, Louise.
Okay. But I'm seeing everybody, and but I don't know how to put myself on the screen.
Okay. Is there a little stop and start video thing down at the bottom of your screen?
Oh, there it is. Sorry, didn't see that. Okay, there we go.
Rosemary, maybe you, okay, Rosemary, see if you could do the same thing.
All right.
There she is. All
There we
right.
are.
Okay.
All right, I've been here. It was wonderful. All of you actresses have contributed a lot to our charism, to our presence, and I thank you a lot. And hopefully, we'll meet in person one of these days.
Yes,
well,
indeed. Yes.
And I was just in awe with everything. The way it was done, the way it was intertwined. I had goosebumps all the time. I was teary-eyed. And I think it was because you were so real for us. That's what it was, because you really meant things that you said, and here it was about us, but it was me, you know. So I just want to thank everybody. I just enjoyed watching the whole interaction. Thank you.
I think my mic is back now, is it?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Annabella. You did great with the pigeon.
Thank you, Jeanne.
It was excellent, and the whole presentation was so beautiful.
Thanks.
Very inspiring to me.
Yeah.
And I hope
I see a comment from Vicki Lewis, who is one of Dory and my colleagues in this kind of work from out at Riverside. And she asked, is there a story about the corsages? Yes, there is. One of the writers who has moved out of the area down into the South was not able to rejoin us for this project. And we sent them a stipend for the rights to use their story again, because they were also the writers. So she sent it back and she said, I want you to use this for corsage for the storytellers. So your corsages, ladies, have come from Linda Bannister, who was one of the original writers, and who turned her rights, her royalties back to you.
Thank you.
She's the writer who wrote Rosemary Redding's story.
Yes, I remember her.
Okay.
Yeah, she interviewed you whenever that was, but yes, yeah.
Some years ago.
Yeah.
And maybe Bianca and Stephanie, if you see any other comments we should be responding to, just let us know.
Yes, someone actually asked how you chose the stories to include.
Oh, okay, good.
That was really, 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 really hard, because we had maybe 30 or 40 stories. And so I had a room like the wall behind me, only it was 4 walls covered with boards that had cut out pieces of people's stories. And I would just have to go through. I'm not even going to tell you who hit the editing room floor, because that's not fair. But it was really hard to choose, but I felt like these 10 stories sort of captured everything, but they also had overlapping moments. You'll notice, like the word prayer comes in and gets sort of repeated in some places. And there were sort of themes that looked like they could be kind of woven through each one. So that's how it happened. But boy, it was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah. She transferred, or the way I experienced it was, she transferred what were the individual stories into the story of a community, into our story as a whole, and how the members live out that charism that is found in hopefully all of us, or that we keep trying to bring into our lives. So I think it transferred from the individual stories, which is why we didn't introduce any of you at the beginning either. It just became the story of the community. So her selections were trying to find those motifs from that first question, that notorious question, so why did you become a nun? To growing up and really knowing what that meant through the service, the burnout, and to where we are struggling now to find how we live in the current day, our values and our mission.
And I have to say, following Sister Roseanne's statement that Christine said at the very beginning about the aging community, that as a member of that community, when I got to that part where I heard, at age 80, I've been doing this for, I changed my career. At age 70, I decided to go out and do this. At age 85, I did this, and I've been doing it now 23 more years. It was really an important lesson for me. I learned something from that that's quite, that's quite energizing. So I was very glad to find that in the in the writing and to hear it today.
And that's an important part of this, is that some people will say, you know, most people who work in dramatized narratives want the original storyteller to tell their own story. And we do a different process. We have it pass through the sensibility of a professional writer or actor and actor. And something transforms there into in your story, your raw material of a story turns into a work of art. And I know that because it happened with me. And I've shared that story before with the actors and so forth. But I would love, therefore, to segue to the question to the actors and writers. What was it that came to you out of this process? Because we kind of know what the storyteller gets out of it, but were there any experiences that you had that, like Doris, moved you somewhere, changed you?
I'll say something. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. It's Christine up here. I'm in my upper left-hand corner.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
I just wanted to say a couple of things. One, that we first read this and it had an idea and a flow to it, but this time through, the cutting and everything, it had a real arc, Dory, and a nice shape. There was a middle section that I found really moving around Romero, I think. And but there was a nice falling action, if you will, at the end as well. So I thought you were very, very successful in the weaving of the writing, and as well as the cutting. And it was a very strange experience. I've done so many Zoom things, as we all have in the last 18 months. This one is very different. One, because we first read it in May 25th, I think. Yeah. And then to see it again, 3 months later, it's just evolved in a most unusual way that, happens when you're in a room together, when the material is getting rewritten and assembled together. So it's quite lovely. And I, again, just wanted to say, yeah, let's go to Broadway,
We used to do these live, so the people that were involved would all have seen it. But because all of these people just recorded their own individual section, they never saw any other part.
Yeah.
So they're seeing it for the first time, as you are, as everyone is. So, and Elena, you wanted to say something a minute ago, I think.
Yes, I did. You have not touched history, you have touched life. I felt all over again, many of those emotions come forth again and share them with you, with the work that you have been able to do here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elena. As always, she expresses things with such spiritual beauty. I'll share what my experience. Today I cried several times, and I never did the whole time we were working on it. And it dawned on me that this was the first time I was allowing myself to experience it, because before that I was the director, and I was thinking about an actor or how we would do this transition. And today I just heard the stories. And over the last few months, I have watched the relationship of the storytellers and the actor writers develop. And you have renewed on both ends, the storytellers and those telling the stories in the production, have renewed my sense of what it means to be part of this community. I have seen us again without all the questions and the criticism and the challenges that we are facing right now as a community, as we look to the future and what that means. And it gave me great hope in us. Yeah. So Beth.
Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Beth.
Here she is.
What a treat it was to talk. I talked to you, on the phone, and here we are meeting for the first time. And you can talk. Of course, you can talk whatever you want to, but I want to say about the whole thing. this had the feel of us all. This really did feel like us all in the same room, privileged to hear all of these stories with everybody given their own time, you know, everybody having their own moments, nobody stepping on moments, but everybody, you know, communally sharing these stories. And it's enriching. Just the idea of people sharing stories of their lives is enriching, whose ever lives are being told, and to be telling these things with such candor and to let us in on, you know, your own doubts about your calling or whatever. You know, all of us have these things in our lives. It's uplifting. I found the whole thing, watching it, uplifting. Beyond that, you know, the production values are beautiful. All the different color backgrounds are just dynamite. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Beth.
I'd like to answer the question from Victoria about how the play came about, which is that originally
take my hand off.
These projects were individual speeches. So when we first started doing it, and there are a couple of people here, Kath and Julianne were in the first group, and we did one-on-one interviews, and then each writer would make their piece into a 10-minute monologue. And then we would perform, we would get 5 actors or actor writers to perform, and we would do the show as 5 individual monologues. And we did that about, I think we have 6 or 7 of those. And so the 6 or 7 that we did, I took and put on the floor of my apartment, of my studio, and just cut them all up into a million pieces. But we had these, it used to be just individual stories. And the idea of this one was to cut those all together and make the one story of a community. And I also think it's because we have done it for so many years, and every time I would meet an actor or writer who had worked on one of these projects, we would say, gosh, we would love to get together and do another one of these. It was like a magnet for people. People love hearing the stories of people who are doing good work. It sounds silly, but there's something that's so wonderful about it, because so much theater is about people who do terrible things. I mean, you know,
It's dysfunctional. Yeah.
You know, we come from Greek tragedy.
There's no car crash in this, Dory.
There's no car crash.
Gotta have one.
No, there's no, and that makes it, it sort of makes it a challenge, but it also makes it really, really satisfying.
That's terrific. It's just terrific.
Wow. The alternate side of my question to the actors and writers is, what was the experience of hearing your words coming back at you from somebody else for the storytellers? And I would want to say that I personally know how vulnerable and generous you have to be to share your life stories. So blessings on you, and kudos and gratitude for doing that.
I think Joanne wants to talk.
Joanne?
Well, I had a phone conversation with Beth, and I didn't know her, she didn't know me, but I said, if your last name ends in O and my last name ends in O, we must be kindred spirits.
It's bound to work.
We were. I felt like I found a soul sister there. And you'll notice that I wear my hair down because I still don't have a forehead.
Well, Beth asked me a question, where is the piece missing? And I couldn't answer her, so.
Oh, it's right over my left hip.
Over.
Oh, but
in the forehead.
In your
forehead? No, my forehead, which is missing. You see, I'm empty here.
On that side, okay.
Yes, it's over my left hip. It has gotten smaller since many years ago because your body uses it for calcium. However, Judith, the production was fabulous, but you know what it reminded me of? Judith and her mother used to choreograph these swimming things when we were young. Now, I'm not a swimmer. I'm like a rock, but they were beautiful. And everything she's done in her life has been the same. Your mother would be pleased. Really. And we're in the same group, so I say yay for my band.
Yeah.
Rebecca's in our group.
My mother was a championship synchronized swimmer. And at the age of 80, won 2 silver and 1 gold medal in the U.S. Opens, or U.S., one of the U.S.
Yeah.
in synchronized swimming at the age of 80.
Well,
unbelievable.
I
This is an
didn't win
amazing
anymore.
woman.
Wow.
So I have to live up to it.
Well, you've definitely done that, Judith. You've made your
Yeah.
parents proud and your family and our band and our community.
And the band, it's the band. Okay. Anything from our audience that we need to be looking at, Bianca or Stephanie? Questions, comments?
I think
Notice a lot of people are still with us. Thank you.
I don't think we got any more questions.
Okay. All right.
There is one, and it's directed to Beth. Beth, are you related to the actor Al Ruscio?
Yeah. Yes, that was my dad. That is my dad. Who's asking?
James Fitzpatrick, who is in our audience.
Yes.
He's asking what happened to Javier.
Oh my goodness. Yes, my father was. My father's career started at the advent of television, so it basically spanned the whole history of television. If you ever saw any television, you have seen my dad. He started at, in The Untouchables, Ben Casey, Dr. Kildare, One Day at a Time, the Seinfeld pilot. He's in the Godfather movies. He's in, he is a well-known actor. Look him up, Al Ruscio. In fact, he's on 12 O'Clock High next Saturday.
Bonnie asked, does anyone know, I guess it's for Rosemarie, what has happened to Javier and Miguel?
They still stay in touch by phone, or they can't come over too much because my being in a retirement house, we're kind of isolated or confined or quarantined or some other words that that COVID has created. So they text and they call, and it's hard because they don't have much of a support system. So it's just, but they're okay.
Good. I'm glad they asked about that. That's really good.
Yes.
And I'm glad to know that. Yes. Yay.
Preguntas más.
I think the last question that I saw was, are you going to be working on another project like this?
We are currently just completed. We completed one a week and a half ago for Providence St. Joseph Health, the Mission Leadership Institute, a training program where we told the stories of 6 of their mission leaders, one in India, one in Seattle, one in Alaska. They were all over from the health system, and they were incredibly inspiring. And that will be with the Providence St. Joseph Health mission group. We've turned that over to them now, and they're using it as a training program. So any of you that are connected with the health system probably could talk to Martin. His last name just blanked out of my head on me now. Shriver. To see if you could have access to that out of their archives and so forth. And we're working on, right now, we're just finishing recording tomorrow on one for Loyola Marymount University. Annually, we honor 5 or 6 people from our faculty, staff, community partners, students, who am I missing? Faculty, staff, students.
Law school.
The law school. And honor them as what we call hidden heroes. So their work in service and action that may be either under the radar, or in this case, one person, Alicia Partnoy, who is a very well-known activist, poet, who is speaking for those who cannot don't have don't have their own voice yet. She is giving them that voice. So, and some of the people that are on here are working with that program as well. Catherine,
Beth
and
Rose.
Julianne are all right in the middle of that program. For the community, we would love, I would love to see us continue to archive the individual stories. But that's up to the community. So
and the other thing we're doing for the future of this, and this is what actually Judith and I taught at LMU, was a course called Voices of Justice, where we actually did it as an engaged learning course with students to go into various communities and do one-on-one interviews that they turned into dramatic monologues and performed for those communities and for the public. So what I see, these productions are not that hard to do. So I think one of the things that Judith and I are looking to do in the future is to teach more people how to do this, so that people can go into their own communities and interview, and then just simply read back the stories. It doesn't have to be a professional actor all the time reading back the story. So I think that's one of the future aspects of doing this. I also wanted to answer the question about where this will be available to see again, and it's going to be on the website for the CSJ Center for Reconciliation and Justice. And everybody who's here today will get an announcement about that. It won't be up on that site quite yet, but it will be.
And it will, as soon as we can download it properly, it will go into Leo in our archives in Orange. So you will also have it available there. And Mary Beth said something to me about there might be some way in which it is, used down the line. So I don't know what that will be when when the new council looks to see where some of these things might go.
Yeah.
We have another question from the audience.
Yeah.
Yes.
For all of our CSJs, what is your advice to the women interested in religious life and women in formation?
I can start that off. I don't think I want to be the only one. Is there anybody that's on the formation team here or working with them? I think I'm not really up to date on that. I know Marianne is somewhere in the audience and she's on the formation team. But I believe that there is a process at this point of discernment that allows somebody who is interested to just simply begin to have a conversation with people who are who know how to communicate and comfortably with people. There is, I know, absolutely no pressure on either side, because we are very careful to be sure that the people we move forward with too are in the right place in their lives. So, so there is a comfortable dialogue. It lasts for several years. Over a period, at some point somebody lives with us for a year with no commitments to see how that feels to them. And then there's the process from there if they choose to continue. We are not, and correct me if I am wrong here, we are not encouraging the really young people to join. We're asking for a little more experience and a little more life stability. Anyone else want to respond to that one? Yeah, Joanne?
There is a program at CSD, and I think sponsored by Sharon Becker and the formation people for interested persons, and they they have days of gathering and they have topics for those days. So if a person is interested and wants to go, possibly with a friend, because some people don't like to say that's what they're interested in. And that's on the website for the Center for Spiritual Development.
Okay. And anyone who could contact us, because they would have our thing and I could refer them on to, Stephanie sends out our contact at the center. Okay.
We have one more.
Oh, yes. Barbara Jean, fabulous question. Is it hard for the actor to dramatize the sisters, I lost the chat, who have died?
Yes. I'll just jump in.
Yeah,
Yes.
please do.
It is an acting feat to glean from the page, from the words, who this person was, knowing that they were vulnerable and giving and hiding at the same time. So it's it really is the calling on of the Spirit to try and embody the truth.
And those of us that knew Rebecca, I think will agree that Rose found her spirit in some amazing ways.
Yeah.
The actress that did Sister Sharon almost had some of her facial expressions, and I don't know when she saw her, but she had her down.
She did her original story.
Yeah.
So she actually knew her.
She did the first story of Sister Sharon.
Yeah. She was
and
great.
That's Mary O'Malley, who did Sharon Becker's story of Papua New Guinea when we did
She also did Sharon Becker's story. That's right. She did a great
job. She did Sharon Becker's the story when they had to rescue the woman who was bleeding out in pregnancy.
Pregnancy,
in the middle of the night, had to go into one of the villages and get her out. She told that story.
Yeah, it's great.
Sure.
That's why I think one of my favorite parts of this is seeing the very end, the curtain call, where you say the sister's name and look at their picture. It just totally got me today. And I thought, oh man. And again, it's like Rebecca became so alive and so, I mean, I even thought, I never thought Rebecca and Rose looked alike, but they sure do in this, And I felt that with every pairing. It really was very moving to see that. And I don't have words for it, but that's how I felt.
There were a few times when Zila was doing you, Christine. Christine Ray, I forgot it was you. I mean, I forgot that it was Zila. And I thought, oh, it's so nice to hear Christine. No, it's Zila.
Like, what a good actress Christine is.
Willing suspension of disbelief.
She had me down.
She did.
And she did not write your interview, so that was
yeah. Any other questions? I think we have probably kept a number of people quite a while who either need to eat or rest or whatever. So I want to make a special thank you to a couple people, Stephanie Mejia, who has taken us through the technical process of getting us here, which is no small feat, and Bianca Rickheim, who has been our production manager. And we have challenged her. And does she have her ears on? No, she doesn't have her she has earphones that have got little bunny ears on that I'm going to miss. Okay. So a very special thank you to them. And a special thank you to Stephanie for having that fabulous background celebrating Heritage Month. So any final things that any of our actors, writers, storytellers, Dory, anyone wants to say?
Just, we all want to do more.
Yeah.
Mas.
Thank you.
Okay.
Deep appreciation, everyone.
And for Keith. Keith cut together these pieces.
Oh, and Keith. That's
that
right.
was no easy task. And so I think having it show up on screen and really doing the water ballet that Judith's mother would have wanted, did it really well.
It was an honor to be among my esteemed friends and actors to be reading it, and I think it just came out really lovely, Doris.
Yeah, you
did a terrific job. I don't know whose idea it was between you, but it was terrific. The whole thing is just fabulous.
Thank you. And nobody asked the question I was hoping people would ask, and that is, on the title, is spirit moves, is move a verb or a noun?
Thank you so much.
Anyway, all right, there we go. And with that in mind, go and let the spirit move.
Spirit and
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Love you.
Thank